Thugs try to force women out of home. Village courts operating out in the open in NCD. And Enga producing world-class strawberries.
This is National EMTV News with Godwin Eki.
Good evening and thank you for joining us for Friday's news. A local resident of Sabama in Port Moresby, Aroa Are from Gulf Province, was threatened by an alleged crime syndicate to abandon her home yesterday. A group of men numbering 20 had bush knives and guns in their possession. 13 of the 20 offenders were apprehended by police and are now at Boroko Police Station. 65-year-old Aora Are from Kerema was forced to leave her house by illegal land title holders who attacked and harassed her yesterday around 11 a.m. She says the men walked into her property with bush knives and guns, asking her to pack her belongings and vacate the property.
One man touched him, kiss him gun, and come inside the not touch him move. Pack him can't gonna move. Or cut him this la. One him house cook, house window, cut him go down. Okay. Oh, get something, oh go inside now. Come out him, now throw me go low. Me look him also me go. I wanna put down, me set up say stuff.
Lands Minister Justin Tachenko says the men acted illegally and had fake land titles that were not legally approved.
This is not the first time. This is the fourth time. Yes. This is happening here in the community by the same group of people. They raided some people up the top the other day and failed. They also raided another family up the top and failed. I believe they're doing this in other districts as well in Moresby. We don't need these outsiders coming in to Moresby South and threatening our people, trying to steal their land, trying to steal their houses with falsified documentation. Yes.
He says because of such behavior by certain individuals, the issue of illegal land grabbing and evictions are affecting the lives of many innocent families.
I can't allow people in the Lands Department to falsify documents, pay bribes, con people to pay money, and then try and steal land of innocent people, knowing that this land is rightfully theirs.
13 of the 20 perpetrators were held and arrested by police on the basis of assault and damages to the property.
We have authorities in place where they should go to before coming in here, but they took everything upon themselves and they came in here to terrorize this innocent family here. They damages most of their properties here, and like Minister said, we have arrested 13 of them. They are now in police custody at Boroko to appear before the court to answer their charges.
The Erima Village Court in Moresby Northeast will hand down a verdict on a murder case tomorrow. This morning, Erima Village Court Chairman Peter Poi adjourned the verdict because 2 of the 4 defendants had failed to appear in court. This murder case occurred 3 weeks ago between 3 ethnic groups residing at the Erima Wildlife Settlement. The court heard that the victim, now deceased, was killed after a fight between the 3 groups. The court cases were heard under the shade of a tree just opposite the Erima roundabout. Meanwhile, for 6 years now, the Gerehu Urban Village Court has been operating from under a tree. Due to the lack of court facilities, court officials, including magistrates, are forced to hear cases out in the open. It is risky business, especially when dealing with serious cases.
From afar, the magistrate's bench could be easily mistaken for a vendor's table. But up close, one would realize it's a village court magistrate waiting to hear court cases at the community level.
Because we are operating in
Previously, court matters were heard in a courtroom inside the Gerehu market, but was moved outside when the market was renovated in 2012.
most of the time we are cutting down.
Tony Bidai is a village court clerk who has served in the Gerehu Urban Court for more than 10 years. He and colleague Waigegamu have presided over hundreds of court matters from under these rain trees, just meters away from the Gereu Betelnut Market.
Since then, we've been operating under the trees. It doesn't look good to the people when we hear court cases in the public place like this. So government should recognize us and give us a shelter so we can keep our court files and everything in there, make the place look alive. Instead of carrying the court files from here, from the trees to the house and back.
The village courts were established in 1989 through the Village Court Act with powers to serve summons, prevention orders, warrants of arrests, and other court fines.
Most of the time we are cutting down the problems here, right at the community level, where the district court and the Supreme Court, they hear a few cases, but most of the cases we hear them here at the village court level, and we sort them out in a way, in a peaceful manner.
At Gereu Urban, the court deals mainly with domestic violence cases, stealing, drunk and disorderly behaviors, and failure to repay dinner money. For Gereu Urban, there are 22 court officials, including the clerks and peace officers.
Funds from Mekaren, when they come in to build a house, 2 houses, that's what we are expecting.
But the lack of proper court facilities and the absence of a filing court system are just few of the challenges court officials face. Tekla Gunga, National EMTV News.
The father of a 16-year-old girl was arrested for sexually penetrating his own daughter twice. 41-year-old Brian Imau Sindra from Ponam Island in Manus was charged for incest and appeared before the Lorengau Committal Court. Police alleged that Sindra sexually penetrated his biological daughter between September 2017 and May 2018, when the victim was doing her grade 7 at Ponam Primary. On 25th May this year, the daughter gave birth to a child and reported the matter to the police. This is National EMTV News. We go for a break now, but we'll be back with more of today's other stories. Stay tuned. Welcome back to National EMTV News. One man is still missing at sea while another has been charged for his involvement in drug-related activities after their boat capsized near Karkar Island in Medang. Manus Provincial Police Commander Inspector David Yapu says the duo were part of a 4-man crew who were transporting 30 bags of betel nut to Manus when their boat capsized. The 2 boat operators and the other passengers managed to swim to shore while the 4th person remains missing. The 4 had experienced an engine failure before their boat capsized due to strong winds. One of the survivors is recovering at Karkar Health Centre. Enga is now commercially producing strawberries for the domestic market from the Agro-Industry Centre facility in Sirinku. Innovative agro-industry has been working in partnership with the Enga provincial government to deliver locally farmed vegetables to local consumers since April last year. The strawberries can be found in selected supermarkets in Port Moresby, namely Stop and Shop, Food World at Waterfront and RH.
The establishment of the Agro-Industrial Center facility in Sirunki has brought about great interest from local communities in both farming their own land as outgrowers and working on the farm. Through a partnership between Innovative Agro-Industry and Enga provincial government, in a first, the province is now producing world-class strawberries, which are sold commercially in domestic markets. The strawberries are grown on the farm, mostly by women from the Sirunki community. Enga Deputy Provincial Administrator Sandy Saka says the community has achieved something amazing, saying it's no small achievement to grow high-quality strawberries in that area, which are great size, shape, have a great aroma, and taste fantastic. This project engages local communities and required an investment of 23 million kina, after a 2-year feasibility study. Through the partnership, strawberries, potatoes, and onions have created opportunities for the people of Enga to stay in their communities and earn an income doing something they have done their entire lives. The farm will supply strawberries to APEC, and they are already being sold in Port Moresby to restaurants, hotels, and selected supermarkets. Lilian Sopera-Kinea, National MTV News.
The Lima Prison in Lae invited an organization from Port Moresby through the Correctional Services to help conduct a rehabilitation program with the detainees and Lima CS officers. The Human Development Institute, or HDI, is focused on changing mindset and help individuals know the importance of their surrounding and the potential each one has.
The chairman and founder for Human Development Institute today told the detainees and CS officers that they must have the capacity to manage everything around them. These include time, money, and the natural resources. Mr. Tam was invited to the Bumo jail in Lae to help run a rehabilitation program for the detainees that can help sustain them when they leave the prison.
Firstly, to change the mindset. Same thing. Because think believe the so, I mean, sin non believe good plan, no good, I mean, sablon think believe. Suppose think believe no good. Sin non believe too, but no good. Or some long lot too, let you reap what you sow. So suppose think believe all right, and life believe too, but all right. So that's why I'm number one something. Second part plan is long. How long come up in money to look out in family? So this is two people are schooling.
The HDI program is currently operating at Bomana in Port Moresby and recently been introduced in Lae through the Correctional Service.
People are going inside every year, working PV, the first part. That's all level 2, second part, third part, no cut. Now people are working this one now. You know, on PV and theory, that's all. Now people are working practical.
This rehabilitation program will benefit almost 1,000 prisoners at Bumo and over 60 CS officers. Buimo completed the theory part of the rehabilitation program and has seen a lot of changes.
From the main compound, we classify more low security and now come step out. In the minimum security units, so most of them now step out, now they are deployed at the prison. Industries walk around like blocks. I'm looking at a big improvement and come up.
The founder and chairman for HDI, Samuel Tam, is not new to PNG. He was born in Rabaul and claims himself as a Papua New Guinean.
Me blow Rabaul. So me walk about, me talking is me halibin Papua New Guinea since 1970. So 48 years now, me been hard time no halibin Yubra.
Mr. Tam said PNG is a very rich nation that is being ignored by its own government and people.
Yubla no got education by using resource. Only divine, peace plus all water, ground by you know, only divine, only natural resource, and then money blue too, sabe blue too. You got this for something, but use him, you will know. That's the difference of education. Even Bible, sabe you give him top long big one, but use him, I'm long way yet. So that's the difference. One is kiss him sabe, the other one is use him sabe. So me come up in education system, but use him sabe.
Julie Badui Owa, National MTV News, Lae.
Students from schools in Lae participated in the Sumatin debate and spelling bee competition held over the past 2 days. Today, the event ended with a youth summit at Unitec. Barata PNG founder and the Sumatin program organizer Christopher Lam says they started the program last year to encourage students in Lae schools to participate in more educational programs.
A round of applause for Christine. The Sumatin Youth Summit was held here at Unitec's Duncanson Hall. The audience, mostly primary and high school students, came this morning to listen to 6 young Papua New Guineans share their experiences and involvement in community development, sport and business, amongst others.
They've got incredible stories on how they have overcome challenges to, do the work that they're doing today. And I'm just really glad that they're able to come here and talk to kids here in Ley, because we really believe in peer-to-peer education.
Christopher Lam is a Ley-based entrepreneur known for his Barata PNG hat label. Mr. Lam and a team of other young people started the Sumatin Debates and Spelling Bee last year for Ley schools. This year, they introduced the Sumatin Youth Summit.
So we came up with this program to just bring them together and, interact with each other, get to know more about each other, and just have that healthy school relationship.
Mr. Lam says this year they got support from the Ley Rotary and the Ley MP to host this event.
NCI Packaging, they've given some merchandise for us, Colgate Palmolive. We also have The Voice Inc. here at Unitec, and we also have the Youth Against Corruption Association.
There are plans to continue with the Sumatin event next year. Lucy Kopana, National MTV News, Ley.
The new US $160 million Warburg Hospital is in its first phase of construction. MTV News had the privilege to film the engineering phase yesterday and spoke with project officers about the effect of the country's current economic state and how it affects the construction phase. Enga Works manager Charles Banner is adamant the project will be ready on time after 3 years.
Provincial Works Manager Charles Banner says the $160 million will be used for site works, which is the first phase, then the hospital buildings, which are the second phase, and the third phase of staff housing. However, medical equipment is not included in the budget. Banner said medical equipment alone can cost approximately 60 million kina. He said the first phase of the construction is vital for connecting and installing medical equipment before the construction of the actual building. The Australian government through DFED has helped with $7.5 million Australian dollar to buy medical equipment.
Assistance from partners, friends, so that they can come in at the right time when construction phase calls for the input. The medical equipments, like as a layman, you might think that, okay, we just complete the building and do the fit out. But medical equipment work starts during about this time. You have to run the pipes, the cables, all these things. And then the actual probably microscope or, scalpel, whatever, can come towards the end of the second year or even the third year.
Banner said due to the current fluctuation of the PNG kina in the world market, they are restricted in funding. In the initial project, they were supposed to build at least 100 staff houses and 300 hospital beds. It has been cut short to half of the initial plan. However, Banner said this will not stop the project from being completed on time.
Designs for this hospital was for 300-bed hospital. But once again, cost factor limited us to build only 150 beds.
The building looks big and complicated from an architectural perspective. However, the physical design will be simple and all ground level, which will be user-friendly to patients and hospital staff. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has launched the project in 2017. Groundwork started in January this year. It is a 3-year project. Vasanata Yama, National MTV News, Mount Hagen.
Over 200 ward members, including councillors, village court magistrates and ward recorders, protested in Kakapo today to show their frustrations over outstanding payments of allowances owed to them by the government. Those who participated in the protest say they are angry that the government hasn't honoured its commitment to pay ward officials. Its New Britain Governor, Nakikus Konga, received their petition and assured them to deliver it to the minister concerned in Waigani.
It's not always that you get to see angry protesters taking part in a march in East New Britain province, but today in the heart of Kakapo town, it was different.
You plan to go into election without allowance? No!
On Monday, the ward officials issued a public message that they will stage a protest march on Friday, and today they carried out the protest. The protest stemmed from outstanding payments of allowances owed to ward officials, including village court magistrates, ward recorders and councillors. They also presented a petition to the East New Britain provincial government, giving the national government 21 days to pay up the due. But that is not all. They also sent a strong message to the government that they will boycott the LLG election in the province if their outstanding allowances aren't paid.
All recorders, all magistrates, all peace officers were plenty, consistent.
The total amount of money owed to them hasn't been made known publicly, but it is understood the payment may run into millions of kina. East New Britain Governor Naki Kuskonga, who was the recipient of the petition, gave assurances to the ward officials that he will bring their grievances to Waigani.
I must go to Mosby immediately to deliver.
Thank you.
If I have to wait, but we wait because we believe also Minister of Provincial Affairs is there, but I'll wait for him so that I will hand deliver myself from my hand to him.
It is also understood that the East New Britain provincial government has budgeted about 1.8 million kina in its 2018 provincial budget handed down late last year. The budget will go towards paying the ward officials for their services to their communities. And today, the East New Britain governor made it clear that that money hasn't yet been given by the national government.
When we passed the budget last year for this implementation, we passed it with this 1.8 billion pala. That was from the provincial government budget here. But the provincial government no give us a budget lamig, we don't have 5 million. Otherwise, it should have been paid some 2 months ago.
East New Britain province is the home of one of the first administrative governments ever established in Papua New Guinea. The protesters say their concern is not just about money, but it is about the government that fails to show courtesy to the third tier of government, a legislative body set in place a long time ago to make sure that there is order, peace and harmony in societies. Edwin Fidelis, National MTV News, Kakapo.
This is Friday's news. We go for a break now. When we come back, we take a look at what's making headlines overseas. Welcome back. Turning overseas now to the U.S. state of Maryland, where police are questioning the suspects in a deadly mass shooting at a local newspaper. 5 people were killed, 2 others wounded. Investigators are also looking into reports of the suspects connected with the newspaper.
The gunman who opened fire on the Capital Gazette newspaper has been identified to CNN by multiple law enforcement sources as Jared Warren Ramos, believed to be in his late 30s. According to our sources, Ramos did have a dispute with this newspaper, that he filed a defamation claim against the Capital Gazette back in 2012, that claim was dismissed. Police also say there were threats directed at the Capital Gazette, social media threats of a general nature. Threats not necessarily, they say, directed at one person in particular, but we're still ferreting out some of that information. But those threats came as recently as possibly Thursday morning, according to police. Also, dramatic accounts from survivors of how the gunman entered the building. One survivor, Phil Davis, an employee of the newspaper, says the gunman shot his way through the front doors, front windows, then came in. It's a fairly small newsroom area that he started opening fire on just about everybody he saw. Police say this was a targeted attack, that he walked around looking for his victims. But Phil Davis said as he and others were hiding under their desks, they could hear him reload, and they described it as a terrifying experience. Victims in this case, the deceased victims, have been identified as of late Thursday night by police as Wendy Winters, who was a reporter, a features reporter for the newspaper, Rebecca Smith, who was a sales employee for the Capital Gazette, Robert Hyacin, who was an assistant editor for the Gazette, Gerald Fishman, the editorial page editor, and John McNamara, who was a sports writer for the Gazette. The police credited with basically interrupting this attack. Witnesses say that they saw police rushing in some of them in their street clothes, pulling on bulletproof vests. They were able to interrupt this shooting, according to authorities, without exchanging gunfire with the gunman. But they are credited with interrupting this because they got there within about 60 seconds after the shooting started.
Lebanon is now home to more than 1 million refugees from Syria, but the Syrian government is regaining control of its territory with encouragement from Lebanon leaders. Syrian refugees are starting to make that long, difficult journey home.
Their life in exile is coming to an end, loading up their truck for the drive over the border back to Syria. When Amr Mana and his family fled to Lebanon, they thought it might be for a week. That was nearly 5 years ago. He insists he has nothing to fear going back to live under regime rule. Whoever betrayed his country and his people and fought the army, let him be punished, he says. Who's innocent is innocent. Amr, construction worker, lives in the Lebanese town of Arsel near the Syrian border. Its original population of nearly 40,000 swelled by almost 60,000 refugees. I asked his neighbor, Atur Badawi, if she'd urge regime opponents to return. She hesitates and then says, if you return to your country, beloved Syria, to His Excellency the President, God bless him, you'll be happy. It'll be like a holiday. War still rages in Syria, but Qalamon, where many of these refugees come from, has been under Syrian government control since last year. Hundreds returned to Syria Thursday, and more are expected to leave in the coming days. The UN Refugee Agency is concerned about their fate, but can't stop them.
The conditions inside Syria do not allow us to organize or encourage refugees to go back. However, we do respect people's own decisions, individual decisions.
The Lebanese government is increasingly eager for the more than 1 million Syrian refugees here to go home. And indeed, some are packing up and getting ready to leave. There are others, however, who are hesitant and say that as long as Bashar al-Assad remains in power, they may never go home. Mohammed Bakr from Damascus makes Syrian sweets in a nearby camp. The profits help support the camp's modest school and other basic services. He has no illusions about what awaits him if he returns. There's a 90% chance I'll be thrown in prison, he says. What good does that do me? It's better to stay here. Mohammed Shahab's main concern is his mentally handicapped 6-year-old daughter, Sirina. Once a French teacher, he also has no plans to go back. There, it's straight to execution, and if you have sons, they send them straight to the front lines, he says, adding that Syrian President Bashar al-Assad is, like Dracula, a vampire addicted to blood. Khalid Raad represents a group of refugees from the largely destroyed town of Qusayr. Almost all are staying in Lebanon. There's no way we can return to Assad's lap without international guarantees, he says. There are no such guarantees. No guarantees for those who leave. No guarantees for those who stay.
In the United States, more than 2,000 children are being separated from their families at the border with Mexico and are still in custody, according to the latest numbers.
On Thursday, some received a visit from First Lady Melania Trump, what's called an intake facilities, where families arrive when they first enter the U.S. This is the second time the First Lady has travelled to the southern border. No fashion statement, though, for this trip. On this visit, she also went to a detention centre where dozens of children are living, separated from their parents. A spokeswoman says the First Lady continues to encourage family reunification. In Washington, activists say the government is taking too long to reunite those children who are being separated from their families. Hundreds descended on the Capitol Thursday demanding Congress pass legislation to stop the Trump administration's hard-line immigration policy. More than 500 protesters were arrested.
2 young Kiwis are being royally recognized for their efforts to address gender equality and youth suicide. The pair received the Queen's Young Leaders Award at a ceremony in Buckingham Palace.
Alexia Hilbert-Tidu from New Zealand.
It was a smile fit for a queen.
I was absolutely beaming, so much so that afterwards David Beckham actually came up to me and said, "You had the biggest smile out of all the Queen's young leaders." So I was like, yes, it was amazing.
Kiwis Alexia Hilbertidu and Ezekiel Rawi recognised as two of the year's brightest and most inspiring young people in the Commonwealth.
I was making sure that my shoes were tight, my laces were tied, and that everything was right so that I did not trip.
And he aced it, even winning Best Dressed.
What did she say to you? I mean, you guys had a wee bit of a conversation.
We did. So she was complimenting me first on my korowai and how important she sees culture in New Zealand.
You are the hope and optimism that the world needs.
19-year-old Alexia, the youngest recipient this year, started up Girl Boss New Zealand, an outfit helping women break the employment glass ceiling.
I want New Zealand to be the first country in the world for women to reach full gender equality.
Ezekiel is passionate about youth mental health issues.
My aim is to hit and to target zero suicides within New Zealand.
The pair also sharing their passion with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex ahead of their royal trip down under in October.
I told them that currently there's more female CEOs on the New Zealand Stock Exchange named John than CEOs who are women, and Prince Harry put a really shocked face and said, "Is that true, really?" And he said, "Oh, that's definitely got to change."
This is the fourth and final year of the Queen's Young Leaders Awards. There's been 60 recipients a year since 2014, one for every single year that the Queen had been head of the Commonwealth at the time of her Diamond Jubilee.
And in case you're wondering...
And what's it like inside Buckingham Palace? What does it look like? How grand is it?
If you think you've seen grand in a movie, times that by 10, and that's Buckingham Palace.
Trukai Sports is next. Don't go away.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. The FIFA World Cup now, and the group stages came to a close yesterday where Belgium thumped England for the top spot in Group G. Belgium's win means a match against Japan coming up, and England on the other hand, will play Colombia. Belgium, for one, will have to beat Japan in order to enter the quarterfinals. The beautiful game can be a rather cruel one at times, and it was so very cruel to Senegal after their last hope of the tournament crashed out with a 1-0 defeat against Colombia.
Last two games were played, and it was Japan and Senegal that would progress. Poland already out, but they did manage to put a goal in the back of the net. Jan Bednarek's goal against Japan changed the landscape. Senegal were top of the group and Japan were going home, but the picture then changed again. 16 minutes from time when Colombia scored. Colombia always knew that they had a win, and it came courtesy of a thumping header from Yerry Mina. It was a goal that prompted scenes of wild celebration back in Mina's hometown in Colombia. The Barcelona player hails from a really small city. Around 20,000 people live there, and look at them. They can't get enough of it, can they? Meanwhile, at the other game in Volgograd, the most bizarre situation. Japan had the ball, and they were simply passing it among themselves, and when it finally came, the Blue Samurai had scraped into the last 16. Spare a thought for Senegal. That is a horrible way to go out. The first time that FIFA had used the fair play rule to determine the standings after the group stage. Well, this is how close it was in the end. Japan and Senegal were identical on points, goal difference and goals scored, and so it all came down to a pair of late yellow cards in their second game. Now, it is when it gets really interesting. Win or go home. The round of 16 does kick off on Saturday, like you said, with two games. France against Argentina will be the first game in Kazan, while Portugal and Uruguay will go head-to-head later in the day in Sochi.
The future path of New Zealand's football will be decided after a review of the conduct of football fans. A referee has been put on leave after senior players complained about bullying on the field.
Teenage footballer Maya Hahn was recently selected for New Zealand's under-17s. But her experiences at national camps since Andreas Heraf took charge as technical director of New Zealand football have hardly been glowing.
There were two camps after Andreas took over,
And in those camps, she literally says it was like a switch. Things have changed.
Maya, who didn't want to appear on camera, says those camps employed similar tactics to those seen in the ultra-defensive football Ferns display against Japan, which brought widespread criticism.
Maya is good, she's a good player, so again, that's the worrying bit, is that, Andreas and New Zealand football were allowed, unbelievably, to continue to threaten players and also threaten coaches and threaten staff and threaten individuals, that they had to do it the way that he wanted to do. It's pretty sad.
Maya's father, Peter Hahn, says the review into Andreas Heraf and New Zealand football could influence his daughter's desire to play in the national setup.
The fact that she discusses this with us shows you how she feels about this whole situation. She would grab the opportunity with both hands to represent New Zealand. And now she thinks, she talks about, what if?
For now, Maya is enjoying her football here at the Ole Academy in Porirua. Next April, she'll take up a 4-year scholarship at one of America's leading universities, against the advice of Heraf.
The one thing that is important to her and has always been the number one thing, the fun and the football, and that suffered.
NZF today said it's working out the terms of an inquiry, and it won't be making any comment until that review is completed. The Hahns say they hold no grudges against New Zealand football or Andreas Heraf, and Maya hopes to play for the football Ferns one day.
Trukai Sports continues with more after these messages. Stay tuned.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. The Royals Rugby League Club in Lae will run into the field with New Jersey this weekend when their A-grade takes on Magani. The Royals Club is the only institutional rugby league club that has survived through the years, apart from other institutional teams including PNGDF and Tarangau that don't exist anymore. The Royals Rugby League teams of men and women displayed their new jerseys yesterday. They were sponsored by Kendo Limited, a company based in Lae. The club has produced a lot of great players over the past years. One of them is Justin Olam, a Papua New Guinean rugby league footballer who plays for the Melbourne Storm in the NRL. The club's manager, Wilson Tapi, thanked the sponsor for their support, which has come big this year. Mr. Tapi said the club is currently running fourth at all levels of rugby league in Lae. There will be no more games played at the John Amane Oval in Minj, Jiwaka Province for the rest of the 2018 season. This decision was made by PNG NRL-C board following spectator violence in last weekend's Inter-City Cup around 12 match between Wagitumbe and Enga Miox.
The decision by the Papua New Guinea National Rugby League Competition Board to cease all matches at the John Mbane Oval in Minsk was made following a match review committee recommendation. PNG NRL-C Board Chairman Adrian Chow said on-field incidents involving Wagitumbe coach Francis Ray and his players Bas Benny and Sipa Koran resulted in the trio being penalized over their actions during the second half of the game. However, the discharge of a firearm into the air sparked violence among spectators, which was the off-field violence that the board is carefully looking into. Chow further said the following board decision became effective immediately. The 3 main games for this season are suspended. All games scheduled for Minsk will now be played at the visiting team's home venue, including this weekend's match. The remaining Chimbu Warriors home games at Minsk will also be played away. A warning letter has been written to the Wagitumbe board and club to control the number of people in the interchange bands. At all remaining games, Enga Miox have 7 days to identify their supporter, a police officer who fired a shot that provoked the crowd to react by throwing projectiles onto the field. Failure to do so will result in a 5,000 kina fine or loss of competition points. On a positive note, Chow said the suspension of games in Mendi following the unrest has been lifted. The chairman said there is no place for violence of any form in the sport of rugby, and any team and their supporters who think they can win the game with violence will face a tougher penalties or be rejected from the competition and the opportunity passed on to others who are willing to play rugby and support the game without violence. Shane Saroya, National EMTV Sports.
To football, the Kimbe men's and women's team is all set to put up a strong side for the forthcoming New Ireland's leg of Besta FA Cup. The teams from the Kimbe Soccer Association has been preparing for the tournament for the past weeks with trial matches to select its strongest side for both divisions. Head coach Michael Waname is looking at finalizing his teams next week. He said the team of both men and women will form a formidable unit when the tournament starts. Local Organizing Committee Chairman Maha Waname confirmed that 27 men's team and 7 women's team will converge into Kimbe Town for the 3-day tournament from the 25th to the 29th of July 2018. That ends Trukai Sports. The weather details for the next 24 hours when we return.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
Weather forecast for afternoon and tonight. Southern region, Port Moresby cloudy at times, Daru cloudy at times and windy, Kerema afternoon showers developing, Alatau and Popondetta rain showers. Momase lay rain showers, Medang fine, Wuwek a shower or two, Vanimo cloudy at times. Over to New Guinea Islands now and Lorengau thunder showers. Kavieng a shower or two. Rabaul and Kakapo fine. Kimbe afternoon and evening showers developing. Buka cloudy at times. And in the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, Mendi and Wabeg, afternoon and evening showers developing. Goroka and Kundiawa, a shower or two. Forecast for small ships for the next 24 hours. But first, strong wind warnings. Current for all coastal waters of southern PNG, Indonesian border, through Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwa Island, to Kerema to Yule Island, to Hood Point, to all Milne Bay Islands, to Finchafen, through VTS, Dampier Straits, to CSC Islands, to Long Island, to Medang, to Bogia, including Coral and Bismarck Seas. Waters of southern PNG, Indonesian border, through Torres Strait and Daru to Kiwa Island, to Kerema, to Yule Island, to Hood Point, to Samurai Island, with waters of eastern and western Milne Bay Islands, with waters of Samurai Island to Cape Vogel, to Finchafen, with waters of Finchafen through VTS Dampier Straits, to CSC Islands, to Long Island, to Medang, to Bogia, and with waters of West New Britain. Seas 2 to 3 meters. Waters of Bogia to Wewak, to Aitape, to Vanimo, to northern PNG Indonesian border, with waters of Manus and its western group of islands, and with waters of East New Britain to New Island and Bougainville. Seas 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Ocean forecast for PNG areas. Coral seas, seas rough with southeast winds at 25 to 34 knots with gusts. Solomon seas rather rough with southeast winds at 20 to 25 knots. Bismarck seas rough with southeast winds at 25 to 34 knots. Pacific Ocean seas slight to moderate with east to southeast winds at 10 to 20 knots.
The weather details were proudly brought to you by Dulux, celebrating 50 years in PNG and the only paint made in PNG.
Before we go, recapping our main stories again. Gang of thugs tried to threaten woman out of her home in Port Moresby. Village courts out in the open, and Enga producing world-class strawberries. And that's been the news, sports and weather for today, Friday, the 29th of June, 2018. On behalf of the entire news team, pleasant viewing and a top weekend. Good night.